those who have subscribed and liked and left a comment. I invite you to like this video and to follow me on this journey. And if you're new here, welcome. And I hope you enjoy today's session. It's been a while since I've left a session here on my channel. It's been a crazy month of July. A lot of things have happened, and time and opportunity hasn't left me the chance to record. But I'm here today to bring to you what's been on my mind. And I have been thinking about daddy issues. Raise your hand if you have daddy issues. I know I have. And I didn't realize that I had daddy issues until I started dating this man that completely reminded me in many ways of my father and how my father treated my mother. Sometimes God will give you a reflection of aspects of your life that you need to focus on and change. My father has passed on now. It's been over a year. He had gotten cancer from 9/11, and he passed away from respiratory issues. During that time when he was ill, I didn't know he was sick for a long time. I didn't know he had cancer. I didn't know what was going on in his life. Even though I was a part of his life and he could have always talked to me or reached out to me and we could have dealt with things together, I didn't know he was sick until he passed out. And a friend of his called me and told me that he was in the hospital. That was the time I realized how isolated I was from him and how much he didn't really want me to know what was going on in his life. It was heartbreaking to me because everyone else around him, his friends or a family, knew more than I did. So it definitely made me feel isolated from him and what was going on with his health. As time went on, I found myself making sure that he was good, and if he wound up back in the hospital, I was there. If he needed anything, I was there to help. And through that time, I had asked him a lot of questions throughout what happened in my childhood when it came to our relationship and how I felt it should have gone. Even till this day, I still feel the effects of our relationship not being as close as I would have liked or thought it should be. I always heard from other people about how much he talks about me and how much he loves me. But at the same time, as he talked to these people, in my heart, I always felt like, yeah, but at the same time, he kept me isolated from where and what he was really going through. For a long time, I live here in Brooklyn, and my father decided to move all the way up to the Bronx, up in some Westchester in the Bronx. And most of the time I would see him when he would come down and visit his friend that lived next door to me. And sometimes he would come to Brooklyn and he wouldn't see me. He would just go there and see his friend, and his friend lived right next door to me. And he would go and he would see his friend and he would leave. And it wouldn't be until somebody would tell me, hey, Nicole, I just seen your dad. I just saw him at the train station. And I had no clue that he was coming or he was around. And when he did come, he did spend some time with me and the grandkids, my two daughters. And he never let on to anything that was going on with his life. I know my father to be a private person, but I always thought that he had enough trust within our relationship, all this love for each other, to allow each other to make space. But as time went on and he got sicker and sicker, I found myself to be his only caretaker, moving him from the Bronx, finding a place for him here in Brooklyn so I could keep an eye on him, running back and forth, making sure his bills were paid, things were good. And he passed alone in a nursing home. And I never thought that it would be how he would end his last days. But when I think about my relationship with my father, in some ways it reflected on the relationship I have with men. And especially with my last permanent relationship, he and my father shared so many things and that were almost damn near identical to each other. And being with this guy, it often reflected the relationship my father had with my mother. It wasn't as healthy, it wasn't as loving and protected and sacred and safe. It was very tumultuous. It was very sometimes backstabbing and lonely and painful and unhappy. And the reflection that he always presented to me, if you're like, he would reflect back to me and I would see my father in him. And little girls, some girls grow up and they're like, I want to date a guy just like my father this and father that. But I never really, maybe someplace in my head subconsciously, I wanted to be with someone that was just like my father, because in my head, he was my dad and he loved me and he always looked out for me and he was always there for me, and he loved me in his own way. But it took me a while to realize that I have these issues with abandonment, which I've gotten from him. And he has abandoned me emotionally and physically in various points of my life. Me being his only child, I have always felt that he would keep me close. But he kept other people closer to him than me. With those types of relationships and not really ever knowing where I stood with him, where I imagined I stood with him, was never our true reality. Those times in the hospital sitting there and having conversations with him about how I felt abandoned by him, how he left me exposed and unprotected, how he treated my mother, how he treated me. Even up into the bitter end, he's done some things that could have changed my life and his life drastically, but he decided to take a different route. After leaving that relationship I was in, it gave me a lot of time to think about my issues with relationships when it comes to men, relationships when it comes to my friendships, my family. It always came across as me left holding the bag of the trauma, the bag of putting in all the work and not getting anything in return. And that was kind of what I was left holding after this relationship I had with this man. And every day, in every moment, when I could think of it, it brought me back to seeing the relationship that I had with him and the relationship he had with my mother and relationship that my father had with my mother's previous marriage. She had other kids. It was never ever really healthy. It was always with some trauma. It was always with drama. It was always with contention and strife. And when I was in that relationship, it was always held with some contention and strife. The feeling of being with someone and still feeling alone. In a relationship where you feel like you should be protected and you're not. Having this vision of this man, of everything that he should be and not what he really is. It was very important to me to get my mind right, to really evaluate what it is that I want for myself, for my future, for the relationship I have with my daughters, and them seeing me to be in a healthy state of mind, a healthy state of being. I have come so far, and I have forgiven myself, and I'm really still working on forgiving my father for certain things that he has done to me personally in the past. And it's still sometimes hard to face those harsh realities and those hurt feelings. And every day I work, and every day I work towards relieving myself of that pressure, of that guilt, of feeling not good enough. And that is something that I continue to work on. And I will have these moments of flashbacks of situations in my past that would just come up. And I guess they come up so that I can deal with them, so that I can heal. So my daddy issues of abandonment, of not being good enough, not feeling worthy, and feeling taking on the punishment of his failed relationship with my mother, his failed relationship with her children. And it has been a theme where I am being held hostage for the wrongs of others that has nothing to do with me. He has stopped talking to me because of my mother. He has stopped dealing with me because of her children. He has isolated himself from me in so many different ways. I remember I didn't speak to my father for years. I went through a whole pregnancy and I didn't call him and didn't reach out to him until the day that I gave birth to my last daughter. And prior to that, I didn't speak to him for years. And he never reached out to me. And in some way, I always felt like, even though I'm an adult and he's my father, I've always wanted him to be the father, to be the one to reach out, be the one to extend an olive branch of, I love you, you're my daughter, I want you in my life. And he gave that love and attention to a cousin of mine. He spent time with her, he would visit her, he would hang out with her, he would give her money, and he was so in a better relationship with her than he was with me. And that hurts. And even till this day, that still hurts, because it really made me feel unseen, unrecognized. And at the end of his life, with all those people that he gave to and took care of and had these great relationships with, they weren't there. They didn't come visit. They never really put any effort up until his very last days. And even then, none of them, I would count, not even his own sister showed up not one time to the hospital or called to say, I don't know. Not to say that my father was not the best of men, and he probably wasn't the worst of men, but he had his ways and he burnt bridges and did certain things to people in his past that many probably haven't, that he haven't made peace with. And when it came time for him to, I don't know, forgive himself and forgive others, I don't think that was on his heart to do. Maybe it was in those quiet moments when he was alone in that hospital bed. I'm sure he had a lot of come to Jesus moments. But my issues with my father has left an imprint on me. It has left me craving really true intimacy and connections, because in so many ways he has failed me, but then in so many ways he was a decent, it's very confusing, and that's things that I am continuing to work through as I want to be a better and healthier version of myself. So if you have daddy issues, if you have mommy issues, and you are aware of them, and even because many years I wasn't even aware that I had these things going on. It wasn't until it had to slap me in my face for me to understand that I needed help. I needed to resolve these issues with myself, not even with others, because they would have to recognize that. And some people just aren't ready to do that. So I had to look out for myself. I had to look at those issues and see where they were and how they affected me, and how I have to make peace with them, resolve them, work through them. Every day, every day is one step closer to being healed from my issues. And right now I'm in the process of writing a book about it and just relieving myself and telling my story. And I just hope that someone somewhere would find it inspirational, and for them to be able to face their issues to head on, so that they can be and feel physically and mentally healthier than they have felt ever in their life. So I'm working through mine, and I'm sharing my issues with you and my journey with you, so that you know you're not alone. And hopefully at some juncture in my stories that it will inspire someone to take on life head on without any reservations, to overcome, to know that they have the power in their hands to do what's best for them. And one of the things about this is taking my power back, taking it back from those that I gave it to willingly or unwillingly, allowing myself to put myself in situations or relationships with people who never valued me, and seeing myself as the most valuable person and gift that could ever walk this earth, because I am that special. And it's taking me a long time, and it's continually every day to trust and to believe in myself. But this is my journey and my story. I love my father. I love him very much. And even though we've gone through what we went through and he's passed on, I didn't even go to the man's funeral, but that's just a personal preference. I really felt that everything I needed to say to him, everything that I really truly felt, I've let him know before he went home to be with the Lord. And I still have those remnants. I still have those moments that I'm still hurt by his actions, because some of his actions still affect me today. But I have to make peace with, he made those decisions. It was his choice, and that is not a direct reflection of me and my value and the part I play in this world, in my life. As a mother, I have to be able to be sane and to be whole, so that I can allow my daughters to have a happy and fulfilling, healthier life than I did growing up. So if you have issues with your parents, your siblings, don't hesitate to rectify them with yourself first. Make yourself whole. Relieve yourself of the pressure, of the pain, of the anger, the resentment, the hurt, because it only affects you. Those people that you feel those feelings for, when they go to bed that night, they're probably not feeling what you're feeling. They probably don't even realize that they done something to you to really affect you deeply or emotionally. So if you're the one that's holding the bag, you're the one that's holding the burden of it all, release yourself. Release yourself from the hurt, the pain, the disappointment, because you are responsible for your own self worth, your value, your self acceptance, your resilience, your power, your strength.